exciting, and I'm going to talk a lot about that today. And it's funny how when I go on the news feeds or I watch any kind of cable news, the energy is always completely parallel to exactly what's going on in the world. It's uncanny the way that astrology plays into the collective experience and the collective energy that's out there. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that today, but I'm not going to make this particular podcast all about astrology. I'm going to be doing an astrology broadcast either tomorrow or Saturday, so watch the feeds, strictly about the eclipses that are coming up and the full moon on June 5th, because that's a really big deal. It's going to affect all of us, and it's going to affect all of us for the next 18 months. So you probably want to tune into that broadcast, and that'll be on the YouTube channel as well. So make sure that you're subscribed to Zenkuda YouTube so that you can get all of the notifications about any videos that get put on. So I went on the news feeds today, and I saw a lot of controversy and a lot of conflict. Apparently there's something going on in, I guess it's Minneapolis, where an African-American gentleman was brutalized a little bit. I saw the video and I had to actually shut it off because I can't watch those kind of things. When you're sensitive and you have energy that's really about doing beautiful work in the world, it's very hard to watch those videos, let me tell you. So it was pretty disgusting, and I don't want to pass judgment on anyone. And then I mistakenly watched some of the videos about the looting that's going on. And I don't usually look at current affairs because I don't live my life in an exterior world. I spend a tremendous amount of my life working on my interior and living an interior life. And that's what I want to talk about tonight on the Soul Space. Is there's so much stuff going out into the world that is just brutality and derision and separation. And a lot of times I get questions from clients when they ask, you know, how can this happen in the world, or something truly unthinkable happens, and they relate it to God, and you know, how, if there's a God, how can these things happen? Well, there's always a divine plan. I think for those of us who are doing our soul work, we know that. But I also think that sometimes what we do is we create laws. We create our own spiritual laws, and we create our own rules. We create a good-bad scenario in everything in our lives. We create duality. We create, you know, I read somewhere recently that the average human has 35,000 decisions that they make a day. Whether that, should I have cereal or eggs, or should I take this street, or should I change my job or move my house? It doesn't really matter. It's a decision, and it's choices. And so when we focus on our interior life, which is what I hope everyone in the audience is doing now, and I hope that's why you've been attracted to the Soul Space. When we focus on the interior, the exterior becomes very different. The language that we speak to ourselves with about the exterior and what's going on in the world becomes very, very different. And so I think a lot of us are getting drawn in and taken in by what I've called in other videos the matrix. But let's just separate, you know, some of the current events that I'm not by any means an expert on, because I maybe watch about 5 minutes of news a week. Just enough to know if there's something that I should know about. Let's take what's happening in Minneapolis with this gentleman who died in police custody, died on a sidewalk. Horrific, absolutely horrific. But if we watch those things and we try to apply logic and we try to apply our rules, you know, whether they're spiritual or logical or emotional, when we try to apply our senses to that, we come up short. It puts us in dis-ease. It puts us in anger. It puts us in separation from somebody else's opinion that may not be like ours. And that's all to do with the exterior of what's going on in the world. Of that opinion's bad, my opinion's right. That man is bad, this man is good. They did the wrong thing, they did the right thing. When what is really the truth? We don't know the truth yet. We don't know, we only know what we've been fed and what we've seen. But when we interpret that if we're interpreting that in a framework of the exterior world and what you've been conditioned to think is your law, is your duality, is what's right and wrong to you, that's where we get into dis-ease. That's where we get into negative emotion. When we bring those events into our interior and realize that it's all a choice. That gentleman, if you want to call him that police officer, whatever, that had his knee on someone's neck for an extremely long time, I had to shut the video off. And I'm just saying that in a factual way, not in a judgmental way. And the people that I saw running out of Kmart, stealing things like lamps and vacuums, well, if you weigh that against the exterior world, they're both criminals. They both have a very depraved idea of humanity. But if you weigh that against your interior, your soul, your interior world, you come up really different. And there may not be as much judgment. And it may be something like, wow, how damaged was that person that they had such an indifference for that life? Wow, how angry is that person that has to steal a vacuum from a looting box store, right? Very different dialogue. So what I really implore you all to do is start living your interior life and start weighing those things that happen in the external world against your interior. Because what's going to happen is your choices are going to be really different. Your choices are going to be different about what you see. Your choices are going to be different about how you interpret things. Your choices are going to be really different about how they affect your life. And that's the key. If you're allowing these things to affect your life in a negative way, all you're doing is taking that wound, taking your wound too, and spreading it out all over the world. And that is what we are watching when we watch those things. All judgment aside, the who did what, where did this start, how could this happen, I don't understand this, what kind of a person, sweep all that out of the picture. Because the real question is, wow, are these people spreading their wounds all over the world? And I think there has been in the last decade a movement as Chiron, the planet of healing, was in Pisces, to go deep and find our wounds and take them out and slam them all over the place. And, oh, I was abused as a kid. And, oh, that's ridiculous. My father used to beat me. Oh, yeah, well, my mother was an alcoholic. And we go in these circles and we go in these spiritual development classes. And we feel so much better because everyone's throwing their wounds out on the floor. And all they're doing is living in the wound. It's living in the wounds. And that's what we're seeing on these videos. That's what we're seeing in the media. And so if we look at those things from an internal, from a soul space, it changes. And then there's healing. There's healing that can occur. So that eventually, if we evolve as a species and we are doing things based on our interior life, on the energy of our soul and healing, then the evolving of the human species, we won't see that stuff anymore. And maybe that's a while away, but it's all up to us in every choice. Because the bottom line is, everything we do is a choice. And we're never without choice. That police officer made a choice. The gentleman who was stopped in the car made a choice. The people running out of Kmart made a choice. The people who decided to take that video and put it all over made a choice. The news people who perpetuate these things make a choice. We make a choice to watch it. So are we making that choice based on the external life? Or are we making that choice based on an internal? What it's all about is us going home and pausing and living an interior life. And that's the challenge in this time. So when we see all this violence and all this division and all this hatred and prejudice and anger and dis-ease, how are we taking that and bringing it into our interior? That is the soul space. And that's what this podcast is about, living Zenkuda, living a higher octave, living a higher vibration. So I just wanted to say that tonight because I think there's a lot of people, a lot of us out there, myself included, that are having a really hard time processing a lot of what's going on in the world. And if we can process it with our inner compass and not the external conditioning, it becomes a very different dialogue. And then the next thing that happens with that is the dialogue becomes different within ourselves. And when we start to live that interior life and live that life from our interior, what happens is we let go of the group mentality. We let go of the tribe. You know, in this last decade, while Chiron was in Pisces, it was such a huge trend to, oh, I got to find my tribe. I got to be in my tribe. And to a certain part, soul space is about a tribe, a community. But I don't want to encourage you to think like the tribe. I don't want to encourage you like me to think like me. I want you to go into your interior and find your own compass. That's what illumination and that's what soul growth is about. And so when we finally go into the interior deep enough that we're letting go of the group mentality, we're letting go of the critical mass, we're letting go of the tribe mentality. I know as a species we don't want that. I know as a collective we don't want that. And I know in my soul I don't want that. So we've got to start looking at media and looking at these things from our soul in an interior perspective so that we have healing instead of constantly perpetuating the violence and constantly perpetuating all of these dis-ease in the world. I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy to change the conditioning. You know, we have a lifetimes and many lifetimes of the conditioning of being a group mentality, a tribe mentality, a herd mentality. But I believe that our species, our humanness, has evolved enough that we vibe higher and we can vibe on an individual level, bring that out into the collective for healing, and then we all come together in a healing, in a positive, in a higher vibe. So that's what happened in the beginning. If anybody has any comments about that, but I think that's the future energy, and we have a lot of futuristic energy coming in. That last decade of wanting to pull out our wounds and throw them all over the place and go into groups where we're supporting our wounds. The reason why that's changing is because the planet that causes that is now in a different sign. It's in Aries. And Aries is a futuristic energy. With our healing in Aries, with our soul space in Aries, we're going to want to have no more of this. We're going to be tired of the wounds and the wounding, and we're going to come forward to heal and to have compassion on a much, much bigger scale. And there's so many things in the universe that are giving us the push forward for that. The magnetic resonance in our world is changing. So many things. These eclipses that are happening on June 5th actually happen in a place in the zodiac called the Great Attractor. And the Great Attractor is a huge black hole of energy that can actually bend light. And it's said that anyone who has an angle of their chart on the Great Attractor can actually see around corners, and they're very psychic. If you really want to be serious about being a mystic and being in the modern mystical world, you've got to do the interior work, and you've got to come out of that external a little bit, a lot of it. So when we start to see things internally instead of on the external loop, that is when we really start to co-create. When we're in our own space, in our own soul space. And now the dialogue is different. And instead of saying, oh, they're a liar. Oh, he's not telling the truth. Oh, he's telling the truth. Oh, he has an interest in this. Instead of saying that, now the dialogue becomes, does this feel right to me? Is this my truth? Is this the universal law for me that's going to propel my life forward into the place that it wants to be? So you see how the dialogue really changes. And now you're not a slave to the group mentality. You're not a slave to those videos that we see that are going to push our buttons and make us want to be violent, make us want to be angry, and make us want to go out and protest and storm things, right? Now your compass, your true north, your soul space is where your truth emerges from. And you don't have to ask anybody what you should be doing. You might weigh in with someone, you know, you have a spiritual witness in your life, someone that you allow to be in that shared space with you of non-judgment. You talk to them about your feelings and how you feel and everything. But you don't need the validation to know your truth. It's within you because you're living an interior life. And so we always have a choice. We are never without choices. And the choice usually revolves around, are you looking at this, looking for logic in this from the external world that has told us what logic is? Or are you looking at this in an interior from your soul that tells you there's a divine plan in everything and to go into right action and goodness? And that's how we co-create. When we know that our soul, which is connected to divinity, is creating our life in unison with God, Creator, whatever you want to call Him, That's the co-creation that we do in the soul space. So stop spreading your wounds all over the world. When you see a video like that and you get really angry, you start talking about it to the neighbor and the girl on the phone and the this and the that, you're spreading the wound around the world. We have to stop spreading the wound. And we have to stop looking for people to help us spread our wound. And we have to stop going into groups that spread our wounds. Okay? So, intense for you guys in describing soul space and really what this time is meant to be about in our life. But I hope that you gain some comfort also from what I was saying about what's going on in the external world and really living that interior life. We really have a choice to do that or not, and it's really important for us to make the choice to go into our interior. I was thinking today, I actually was meditating, and I was thinking about the chakras. So those of you out there don't know what chakras are just basically our energy centers. There are our spiritual energy centers, and we have 7 major chakras in our body. There's a lot more than that, but we'll stick with the 7. And I was thinking about how our lower chakras are chakras that we take in energy from. And usually our lower chakras are the chakras where we take in sometimes negative energy, you know, like in our root chakra we feel insecure or etc. So I was thinking about the upper chakras, and I was thinking about how we're evolving now and the energy is so much higher. And I think if we can do work on our upper chakras now, we're going to find being in a soul space and being in the interior much easier, because I feel like the upper chakras are the chakras that where we stop asking about our needs being met and we start asking about how can I give. And that's also how the dialogue changes when we start to live from an external life to an interior life, you know. And so like in the last decade there was so much, and even lately there's so much out there about, you know, I had this wound and I want to talk to other people who have the same wound, because you're looking to take from that. But if you flip that over and go into the heart chakra, the throat chakra, where you can speak your truth, even the third eye, the crown, it's going to more or less be what can I give to the world about this wound. So I just wanted to put that out there, because I think if we can really meditate on the upper chakras, it's going to put us in more compassion. The heart, you know, more compassion than the lower chakras. All right, we're part of a lineage of healers. And so even if it's just something that, a conversation that we have with somebody we're waiting online in the store with, we can change people's thinking just by being that lineage of healing. I think that when you are living a soulful life, and you're living a life of interior design where you're working religiously with your soul every day in some way, some process, some time that you spend in contemplation with your soul or in a spiritual practice. When we do that, and then we bring those little glimpses and those little tidbits out in the world, that's how we're going to change, and everyone else will have that beautiful, loving opinion. So I think that's really the key. So yeah, I wish everyone thought like this too. Hi Christine, thanks for joining us. So if anybody has a question they want to ask about the energy, about, it doesn't have to be just astrology, pretty much anything, we'll answer it tonight. I really didn't prepare a whole lot, believe it or not, for this broadcast, because I feel like this energy is extremely spontaneous. And I feel like it sometimes is best when we flow in that spontaneity, instead of really trying to schedule every moment and be so rigid that we're putting every moment into a time of this has to be done now, this has to be done now. Because I don't know about you all, but I feel like time especially is changing so much. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. I think that's because, again, our idea of time was always based on external, we were taught, right? We're even taught how to read a clock as kids, right? So we have this idea of time that is an external parameter. It's an external framework, right? And so when you start to live an interior life, especially now where a lot of us don't have a schedule and stuff, then it becomes our body and our soul, our interior kind of creates the time and the time frame. So that's why I'm kind of not scheduling my life so much. Andrew writes, if we're talking about the universe, I think it's a little bit significant. Hold on. Yes, and I actually am so into the planet energy. I truly believe, and this will be as my courses and things go into astrology, and astrology is just one of the modalities I do. Astrology is like my basic roadmap. It's like my GPS, but I have many different vehicles. And so Andrew, for me, the planets seem to each one have a different spiritual lesson to teach us. And I'm in the process of doing videos now. I want to put them all up at once on my YouTube channel for the spiritual teaching of each planet. And so I hope you'll all watch for those. Kim says lots of friends seem to be going off the deep end, becoming alter egos and flipping out, dropping off the face of the earth. Is this part of the energy coming in? We're in a very futuristic energy. And I think what you're seeing is everything we do is a choice, and we're never without choice. So those people don't just seem to be doing that. They are choosing to do that, right? So when I see that, it's fear, right? And this is where living an interior life comes in, because if you really go into your soul and look at something and become the observer, which is really what this energy with the full moon and the eclipse is about, is detaching and being the observer. That's why the universe has given us these transits with Neptune. And so if you can do that, then what you're going to see with these acquaintances and friends who are really acting aggressive or acting just so out of norm is they're acting out of wounds. They're, again, I hate to keep saying it, but they're taking their wound and throwing it all over the earth, right? They're acting from a wound. And we all have the idea to do that, but that's the crossroads. Am I going to keep spilling my wound all over the world, or am I going to do something about this, go home, close my front door, work it out, and then come back a new normal? Because that new normal is an improved normal, is what it's supposed to be, the improved normal. It's not supposed to be all this craziness that we're seeing. And so I think that when you're the observer, it becomes a different conversation that you have about that person acting off the deep end. And it becomes, wow, they have anger, or wow, they're wounded, or wow, they're just wanting to go into some kind of detachment, and that is the mechanism they're using, and without judgment. You know, like I see some really crazy stuff, even just walking out the front door lately, so I know exactly what you're talking about, Kim. And I just kind of observe it, and I start to go into the old thinking, and I'm like, what kind of a person is that? And then my soul takes over, and my interior life comes in and says, oh my gosh, I'm going to send them love, because obviously there's something really in dis-ease about them if that's the choice. And now it doesn't affect you in the same way. And so that's, you know, the way I would deal with that, right? So I want to tell you guys a little story, because I just think it's an inspiring story. I hope you guys like it. But I will tell you that in this eclipse, and I'm going to do the astrology tomorrow. I don't want to go too heavy in astrology tonight. But Kim, I will tell you that it is part of the energy coming in. It's a futuristic energy. People are trying to decide how they want to live their life. For some people, they can't handle that. You know, for someone like you, Kim, someone like myself, and someone like a lot of the people on the feed right now, we've been living an interior life and working on our soul and trying to be in right action and love for many years. Some people have not been. And so this is a really confusing time for them. And so they don't want to let go of the external life. They don't want to let go of the way they've been conditioned. It's just like, I'll give you an example. I'm having a hard time right now with time because, again, I was taught time and the way scheduling should be based on an external paradigm that was taught to us as children even. You know, okay, this is 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock is lunchtime, and dinner's supposed to be, and I don't have a set schedule. I'm very regimented in my work. I get a lot done. I'm very productive. But I don't have a set schedule other than waking up and going to bed the same time every day. I find myself eating my big dinner at like 1:30 in the afternoon. It feels good. But in the beginning when I started to do that, I told myself there was something wrong with it. Well, there's nothing wrong with it if that's when my body wants to have a meal. So you see how there's also people that when that happens will start to beat themselves up. Oh my God, I'm so screwed up. Now I'm eating my dinner at 1:30 in the afternoon. Oh, something's really wrong with me. And they'll keep internalizing that because they don't have any other place to go but the external paradigm. So now that creates insecurity and anger and dis-ease, and maybe they got to go to the supermarket. And they're going to the supermarket feeling bad about themselves, judging themselves. They're angry, they're in dis-ease, they're frustrated, all because they ate dinner at 1:30 in the afternoon. And I know that sounds cray-cray, but that's really what's happening in the world, is everyone is measuring everything by a paradigm that no longer is. Life as we knew it is gone. It's never coming back. I don't care if you pick up where you left off and try to do the same exact routine that you did in March. It's different now. The world will never be the same. And it's our job to go into an improved normal. That's what this is all about. So, hey, I know I'm really passionate about this, but it's really true. And people are all reacting differently. Again, the old paradigm puts us in that's good, that's bad, that's good, that's bad. Get rid of that. Go into your internal and the compassion, you know? And even when someone, you know, is no longer in your life because they've made different choices, that's okay. You know, you love them every morning from your yoga mat, and that's good, you know? So I want to tell you guys a story. So I know I have a clothespin here and a piece of coral. There's a story to it. So I guess it's about 4 years ago, I went to Aruba, which is one of my favorite places. Always stay at the same place, just like it's like a second home to me. I haven't been there a couple of years though. And I used to always go every winter. And so I went to Aruba with one of my best girlfriends, someone I know like over 20 years. She's my heart, she's my bestie. And I decided, this was a year, I had kind of taken a sabbatical. And I decided that I was going to face all my fears. It was 2015. And my mission that year was I was going to live in a love-based life, a love-based mentality, and not a fear mentality, right? So you can see how this is very parallel to now. And so we're laying on the beach one day, and along the way, I've been making strides all that year and facing a lot of fears, all kinds of fears, right? From physical fears to emotional to relationship to all kinds of things. And we're laying on the beach, and my girlfriend's, you know, lathered up in suntan lotion. She's really relaxing. She's like, you know, snoozing in the sun. We're just having a great time, and gorgeous paradise. And they have parasailers on the beach. And anyone who knows me knows that I am terrified of heights, and I also I hate the feeling of being ungrounded and anything not under my feet. I mean, I even sleep either now with Sparky on my feet. If I'm on vacation or I'm on a trip and I'm in a hotel, I actually put a pillow on my feet if Sparky's not around, because I have to have a ground on my feet. I'm an air sign. I'm always woo. So we go to Aruba, we're laying on the beach, I see these parasailers, and my friend knows I'm definitely not going to do anything that's a height thing or anything. I'm terrified of heights, and I don't like anything under my feet. So I don't even like to fly. So she's kind of dozing off, and I turn around to her and go, come on, let's go. And she's like, where? It's lunchtime? And I'm like, no, we're going to parasail. She's like, you're crazy. We are not parasailing, and you are not parasailing. And I said, yeah, we're parasailing. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, we're parasailing. And so she's looking at me, and now I'm not looking happy. It's not like, yay, we're parasailing. It's like, we're parasailing. Because I'm meeting this fear head on. So we go over this little hut stand, and these two locals are doing the parasailing, you know, and it's always really windy in Aruba. But on this particular day, it was very windy. And I didn't really notice this because I was so into my soul mission that I am going to be a free soul, and I'm going to get my soul free, and I'm not going to have any fear. I am going to go up in that parasail, and I'm going to have a great time. So the boat was out, and we're waiting by this hut. They took my 60 American dollars, and now I got to wait for the boat to come back. So my resolve is kind of faltering, and I'm standing on this beach, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm crazy, but he already took my money. I know he's not giving my money back. All right, I'm going to do it. I have to get my soul free. I have to get my soul free. This is what this is all about. So I stood on the beach, and I went to pick up this piece of coral. And as I do it, I'm like, I'm going to just focus on this coral so my anxiety goes away. And I'm praying to Spirit. And I say, Spirit, please, I want to get my soul free. I want to get my soul free. Give me the courage to go up in that stupid balloon thing, whatever it is, because this is going to teach me that there's nothing I need to fear in my life. I have choices. I have choices. And I'm going to love myself, and I'm going to break this barrier. Please help me get my soul free. And I pick up this piece of coral, and there's a clothespin in the sand, because I guess they use them to hang stuff around. And I look at the clothespin, and written on it, it says, free soul. And it was all I needed, an absolute sign from Spirit that I was supposed to go up in that parasail and face my fear. And so I had a choice that day, right? And like Andrew just wrote, there's nothing scarier than letting go of the constructs in your life. There was nothing scarier for me than having nothing under my feet and being all those hundreds of feet up in the air and being so frightened. And especially, don't you know, they bring me up there and it's so windy. I never had any business being up there in the first place. And that's a whole other story. but they closed down everything after I got my feet back on the beach because it was that dangerous. So, but Spirit was with me, and I was praying to get my soul free, and they gave me the most beautiful sign. So the moral of the story is, don't be afraid to leave those constructs. Don't be afraid to go into the love of your interior life and leave the external behind. Those external paradigms, those external constructs are harming you. And the ones that aren't, bring them forward in love. And that's how we're really, really going to come out of this with an improved normal. And there's so many things the universe has working for us. And just the astrology that they're giving us right now, and the positions of the planets, the vibration of the universe, and all those things. So I hope that you all will be brave enough to go into a love-based mentality and let go of the fear-based mentality. Because has this last couple of months been a challenge for us. And it's going to remain a challenge for a while, because this is not about a pandemic that's lived or short-lived. This is about a divine plan to bring us into our internal life.